Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Today's episode is one that might feel a little uncomfortable to talk about, but I think that's exactly why we need to have this conversation. We're talking about gender disappointment after going through infertility or loss. And before you turn this off or feel that little twinge of guilt just hearing those words, I want to say right away, you can be deeply grateful for your baby and still grieve the one that you imagined. It's not one or the other. Both things can be true at the same time. And if you've ever felt this, even quietly, even with a twinge of guilt or shame, then this episode is for you. Let's start by talking about what gender disappointment really is. I'm sure many of you have probably seen those gender reveal videos where you can tell that one of the parents is super upset or disappointed that they aren't having the gender of baby that they want. Okay, this is not what we are talking about here. I also know that many people have issue with using the word gender for the baby instead of using the word sex. I'm aware these terms have different meanings and contexts, but in this particular context, we are using the word gender to simply refer to whether the baby is male or female. So gender disappointment is the feeling of sadness, grief, or even loss when you find out that your baby isn't the sex that you were hoping for. I want to be really clear here. This is not about loving your baby any less. It's not about being ungrateful. And it is definitely not about being a bad mom or a bad dad. In this case, it's about expectations. It's about the dreams that you had. It's about the story that you've written and that you've been telling yourself since the moment you learned that they were either a boy or a girl. And when that story suddenly changes, there is grief there. So now let's talk about why this feels so much more complicated after you've gone through infertility or loss. Because for many, this isn't simply just about the gender anymore. After going through these traumatic things, so many of us are already carrying so many layers of grief. I mean, we've lost our baby, we've lost our timeline and the story that we had written for our life, we've lost our sense of control, and we've lost the version of motherhood that we thought we'd have. And whether we realize it or not, we do start to attach meaning to what comes next. And sometimes it may sound like, maybe if I have a girl, it will feel healing. Maybe this will make things feel whole again. Or maybe this will balance out what I lost. Not because we're ever trying to replace our baby, but because we're trying to make sense of the pain that we feel. So when things don't look the way that we pictured or the way that we planned, it's not simply just about disappointment, but it can feel like another loss layered on top of all of the other losses that we are feeling. And after we acknowledge this feeling comes the guilt and that little voice in your head that says, how could I possibly feel this way after everything I've been through? There are people who would give anything to be in my position. I should just be thankful. And yes, that gratitude is real, but so is the grief. And one of the biggest lies that we're told, especially after going through infertility and loss, is that gratitude should cancel out grief, that we should be thankful for what we have and that it should erase all of the grief and the pain that we're feeling. But it doesn't. You can feel thankful for your baby and sad about what you imagined your life would look like. You can feel joy at the new baby that you have, and you can feel disappointment about the one who is not here. You can feel love and grief all at the same time. And that doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It simply makes you human. And most of the time, as we said, gender disappointment isn't really about the gender itself. It's about what that gender represented to you. Maybe you pictured having a beautiful mother-daughter relationship, or raising a son just like your partner, or recreating something you either had or didn't have growing up. It can be a particular name that you had picked out especially for this baby, or the memories that you imagined making, the trips you planned on taking, all of the things that you imagined doing with your baby and with your family. And it's the way that you thought your family would look, and now having to live with the fact that it doesn't look like that anymore, and you have to just make a new vision. After loss, all of these visions can feel even more significant because we've already had to let go of so much. And that's not anything you should shame yourself for, but it is something that we have to name and acknowledge and sit with so that we can understand where the feeling is coming from. So this is one of those things that so many people feel, but nobody talks about it because it feels risky to bring something up like this. It feels like something people would judge you for, especially people who haven't been through loss or infertility, because they can't understand what it's like. They simply see you being upset that you're not having a boy or a girl that you wanted, that you should just be happy that you have a baby at all. But especially in the loss community, there is so much unspoken pressure to just be grateful that you're pregnant again. But here's the truth. Your experience doesn't have to look like anybody else's to be valid. Your grief and your feelings don't need permission, and they don't need to be justified. And you don't have to silence part of your experience just because it makes other people uncomfortable. Instead of trying to push these feelings away, what if we just allowed them to exist without judgment? What if instead of saying, I shouldn't feel this way, and feeling guilt over the feeling, we said, this is simply part of my experience right now. These feelings don't go away when we shame them or ignore them, but they do soften over time as we acknowledge them and understand them. And over time, what you imagined and what is real can start to coexist in a way that maybe feels a little less heavy. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to know you are not alone in this. You're allowed to feel everything that comes with this journey. The gratitude, the grief, the love, and all of the complexity. None of it makes you a bad mom or a bad dad. It makes you someone who has been through something really, really hard and is still showing up and trying your best. Remember, none of us have ever been through this before. We don't know exactly what to do, and we don't even know what we don't know. And there is no guidebook for how to go through infertility and loss. Grief is not linear, and there's no right or wrong way to go about it. If this episode meant something to you, I would love if you shared it with someone who might need to hear it too, or leave a quick review on Apple or Spotify so that other lost parents navigating these feelings can find this episode too. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.